When you think of Rare, you probably think of Banjo-Kazooie, Killer Instinct, and Battletoads, just to name a few. But they had to start somewhere back in the NES days, and they definitely had their fair share of clunkers. So let's take a look at 3 games that I think deserve to be called out. I know everyone associates Who Framed Roger Rabbit with LJN because they did publish it, but actually Rare were the ones who developed the game. You would think you'd play as Roger Rabbit, but no, you play as Bob Hoskins' character, Eddie Valiant. But since they knew you'd want to see Roger, he follows you around and is with you for the entire game, just kind of sliding around. You spend most of the game collecting things like pieces of a will, bombs, dynamite, and so on. You find these items by going into various buildings and talking to whoever is in there. They either tell you the building is empty, or that you need to search the drawers. Searching the drawers is super tedious. Sometimes you ask the people for help and they flat out deny you, which is pretty infuriating. This happens the most in Toontown. Help me out, Porky! Well, at least you can do that. When you're not in the building, you have to watch out for stray cats and dogs who sometimes jump at you from the side of the screen, giving you no time to react. That's annoying. And there's also weasels you have to fight throughout the game. And, much like the infamous boss fight, which I'll get to in a minute, you have to continually tap the controller to bounce around and punch. Do these fight mechanics make sense to anybody? But regardless, they're not as bad as the weasels you can encounter while driving Benny the Cab. They make you answer the punchline to their terrible jokes. But what sucks the most is you hardly have any time to read and choose the right response. When you finally make it to Judge Doom, this has to be the worst, most monotonous boss fight in any NES game ever. This guy takes an obscene amount of hits, and it takes forever. Like, why does it take so long? Because you have to bounce around like an idiot to gain strength before swinging your punch. And you do this over and over and over again. It's not worth it to use items because they barely make a dent in his health, if at all. What makes this even more infuriating is when you get hit, he does an incredible amount of damage to you, just to rub salt into the wound. I really hate this game. But there are some things that I think are alright about it, like the phone number to call Jessica Rabbit. I imagine that back when this game came out, having a phone number to call was a pretty fun idea. Now I'm sure it's just a porn number or something, so I'm not gonna dial it. Next up, let's talk about Double Dare on NES, which of course is based on the hit Nickelodeon show of the same name. I like how joyful they make host Mark Summers look in sprite form. This game isn't all bad, like answering the trivia questions can be fun, and the clown minigame is alright. But some of the aspects are just plain trash. Most of the minigames all involve the mechanic of gauging your strength with the D-pad and selecting your angle with the A button. But some work better than others. The worst offender has got to be the gorilla game, where you basically have to be pixel perfect in order to land the banana in its hand. And some of the physical challenges give you such a small amount of time to complete that your time is up before you get a chance to figure out what the hell you're doing. Another one of the minigames that's horrible is the one where you have to get a golf ball up a super narrow path. Then your friend is supposed to blow the ball into the hole. Good luck even getting the ball to go up the little narrow hill. And even if you do, it will likely smash into the wall anyway. But the absolute worst part is the big obstacle course at the very end of the game. This is your prize if you're on the winning team. You constantly have to tap left and right on the D-pad for almost the entire length of the course. You only get a break when you stand up and grab the flag. The hardest part is tapping up and down on the D-pad to climb up a slippery slope. I can't do it. My fingers just aren't fast enough. It's like the developers were like, well, it is called a physical challenge after all. There are no words good enough to express how taxing the obstacle course is on your hands. It's not worth it. And finally, let's shed some light on Time Lord on the NES. What makes him the Lord of Time? I'm not sure, but you're in space collecting orbs and kicking enemies. And let's start out with something positive. I think the time travel effect looks pretty cool. I'll give it that. But now for the negative, which there's a lot of. It gets a bit better once you get a sword, but the hitboxes on the enemies are really strange. Sometimes you can hit them even though it appears you aren't close enough to them, which I guess is fine. The controls are super floaty and it feels like you're trying to control a balloon when you're jumping sometimes. The second level is odd. It's not linear, meaning you're going to go back and forth until you collect enough orbs and kill enough enemies, I guess. The enemies are pretty funny. Trolls that are charging at you with everything they got, and dragons who look like they've had an allergic reaction to a bee sting. They're constantly dropping bombs on you, which is pretty annoying. There's a part where you kick the sky in order to kind of do a double jump to get one of the orbs, which is just chilling in the sky on a floating platform. Who would think to kick the sky? It's just goofy. You can also get an orb here by walking back and forth through some mushrooms until they decide to stop appearing. But my favorite way to get an orb in this level is just by standing underneath it. You can tell they just gave up by this point. And at the end of the stage, there's one of the goofiest dragons I've ever seen. All in all, the controls are floaty, it's a bit unnecessarily cryptic, and it's just plain dumb. Well, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at 3 not-so-hot games made by Rare. Are there any that I missed? Any that you disagree with being labeled as bad? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye!